FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
The 2016 Agri-Pulse Ag Day Roundtable focused on the past, present, and future of sustainability in a panel moderated by Agri-Pulse editor and publisher Sarah Wyant. Participants in the discussion included Land O'Lakes CEO Chris Policinski, Dave White, a co-founder of the 9B Group and a former NRCS chief, Field to Market President Rob Snyder, and Greg Halverson, president of Black Gold Farms, a potato farm headquartered in North Dakota. Here are some highlights from the conversation, which took place on March 14th on Capitol Hill.
And I feel like I'm in the movie The Christmas Carol. Remember The Christmas Carol? At the end, Ebenezer Scrooge, he's seen the past and the present and the ghost of the future pointing out there. And he sees all the bad stuff that's going to happen, and he asks the ghost, are these the shapes of things that must be or things that may be? And we're at that crossroads. We've seen the things that may happen, and we have the power to make the change, to make it better.
You know, when you go and talk to a group of farmers about sustainability, there's skepticism around the term, but then when you dig into it and start talking about the actual issues, the actual practices, it's the stuff that we've been working on for a long time. And so it's how we connect all of that work that's happening on the ground back to the consumer, and sustainability has given us the term to sort of have that conversation. So I think it's here to stay. I think there will be shifts in how it's marketed, of course.
As I said earlier, we're in the potato business in my fourth generation, and interestingly enough, the fifth generation of Halversons is kind of in process now. I've got 8 granddaughters, haven't got the first grandson yet. But sustainability kind of hits me between the eyes there too. It's something that we all kind of think about.
How is Land O'Lakes approaching sustainability? Maybe the best thing I can do is tell you first how we're not approaching sustainability. We're not approaching sustainability as something that's being imposed on us and that we have to comply with. We're not approaching sustainability as a passing consumer fad that we're going to kind of superficially engage in and move on to the next fad. We are looking at sustainability as probably our single biggest broadly defined business opportunity commercially, and bluntly as an obligation that we've got to our owners, to farmers, to consumers and customers and society. We think it's that important.
Certainly the question about whether there not needs to be a federal standard is a bit above my pay grade, and that's for others to decide. But I would say from a voluntary industry standard approach, Field to Market is trying to step into that gap a little bit so that there is a pre-competitive way to go about this, and that if you're asking farmers something, you're asking them one set of questions, and they don't have to do 12 different things. And I actually think that that's really critical.
And I worry about the farmer in all of this. I'm not a farmer, but I worry about the farmer having to comply with multiple standards and not being able to do the work of authentic sustainability and progress against wherever they are.
And if we can't agree on one, can we maybe agree on some commonalities between it? So McDonald's doesn't shoot you something different, and General Mills shoots you something. And where does it end? It's got to make some common sense. We've got to have some sort of cohesion and rally around a set of agreements. And I don't care if it's fed or private, as long as we can bring some sense to this.
And we are creating standards for the food companies to make claims, because if they're going to say that their water use has been reduced by 10% in their value chain, or their greenhouse gas emissions has gone down by 20%, the data better back that up, and those two companies better be approaching that the exact same way. So we actually view Field to Market as a standard for that purpose, but it's not really so much picking up every rock on the field to see what's going on. So I think it's important to make that distinction.
Nobody's going to get paid for sustainability. Land O'Lakes doesn't get paid for hitting a threshold of basic safety. That's part of being in the business.
What we have now, we feel we have a very efficient farm, that we have a lot of really great customers. And I love telling that story because we can feed a lot of mouths, and we can do it for a very low price, and we can do it in many different ways. So I think every farmer has a story to tell, and I think that's a great way to tell it. And as long as it's told in an authentic way that's believable, and it doesn't have to be, just tell the truth, just tell the story. I think that's the way it needs to be done.
I would say the other piece that is so critical is transparency, which is part of sustainability. We can't just do it, we have to talk about it now in a way that agriculture has not really been prone to do in the past. Maybe it's a cultural thing, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm from a farming family too, from rural America. You don't say certain things, you don't brag about yourself. We have to start doing that a little bit better. And I think this moment in time provides an opportunity for farmers to partner with consumer-facing brands who do have a megaphone, who spend millions of dollars on television advertising every year, and have the opportunity to help tell their story for them. And I think we've got to hop on that, or it's a massively missed opportunity.
We need to engage the consumer in a dialogue about where their food comes from and help explain some things to them that will take time to explain. But if we engage the consumer, I think they will relax, and I am an optimist. I think we're in choppy waters, and I think we have to be very careful as leaders in the food industry right now, right here. But I think if we manage this situation well, we can rebuild consumer trust and confidence in food through some of the things that made this industry great. We're a little wobbly right now, to be honest, but we can do it.
This is an issue that it's not partisan. This is an American issue. And you have got such wonderful support from both sides of the aisle, both sides of the campus, that the men and women in those positions who really want to do good for agriculture, who really are concerned about the future not only of agriculture but of our nation, the ability to feed ourselves. You know, I do not want to be dependent on some foreign country for my food. I want our farmers to survive. I want them to thrive. I want them to be a part of this conversation. And we've just been blessed by having bipartisan support for these types of issues.
I think we also have to, bluntly, ignore those groups that aren't going to come along or have an agenda that is counter to continuing the great story of American agriculture for the benefit of all. Ignore them and frankly call them out as bad actors in the movie, because that's what they are. And we have to be a little bit more assertive as agriculture. We can be too nice. You know, we do vote. And it's not just the 2%. It's the welders, it's the retailers, it's the schools in rural communities. You add all that up, you're back to 25% plus. And we need to use that power to make sure we have folks who help continue to craft that legislation that's wise, that's based on fact and science, that can continue the story.
You're seeing more opportunities for farmers to actually sit across the table from major food companies and retailers in ways that I think even 5 or 10 years ago wasn't happening so much. And I think that's a hugely important and unique opportunity. I mean, I have seen major food brands who shall remain nameless, but after an hour-long conversation with some farmer leaders, shift the entire way that they're talking about sustainability or some of the questions they might ask or some of the ways that they approach these things. That has to happen more. We need to really create and facilitate more of those kinds of opportunities.
I've got an old fellow that works for me by the name of Harold. If everybody could talk to Harold, there would be no question. Now, Harold has probably got a third education, but Harold is authentic. I think we need 10,000 Harolds in this business, and we wouldn't have any trouble at all.
And I hope sustainability is not a fad. It's too important. It's too important for our planet. It's too important for our future.
We really try and not only talk the talk, we try and walk the walk when it comes to sustainability. I talked about authenticity. I talked about transparency. And I also talked about my 8 granddaughters. I think one of the outcomes that I'm looking for is to have 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe all 8 of my granddaughters in the field of agriculture in another 20 or 25 years. To me, that's what transparent, authentic, sustainable agriculture is all about. Thank you.